I didn't think I'd be going home that day. The meeting with the major client in Santa Monica was suddenly canceled at the last minute because he came down with a fever. I drove back to the villa in Venice Beach, the one Adam and I had poured our hearts into for nearly 10 years. That white-tiled, sunlit house where I personally picked out every floor tile, every kitchen pendant light, with all the heart of an interior designer. I didn't rush inside. Something made me pause for a few seconds at the door, my hand still resting on the knob. I heard laughter. Not just any laughter. It was soft, intimate, echoing from upstairs. The kind of laughter that lingers with satisfaction. The kind of closeness that should only exist between a husband and wife. I took off my shoes to step quietly through the foyer. The oak-scented staircase still carried the polish I'd applied just last week. My hand trembled slightly. Not from fear, but because some part of me already knew the truth I was about to face. The bedroom door was ajar. I didn't push it open or knock, I simply turned the handle and stepped in. That scene. Adam, the man I'd been with for 11 years, the man I held hands with in the ER after our first miscarriage, the one I'd stayed up all night with planning to buy this house, to build this home, he was lying in our bed. Between two women I once called best friends, Natalie and Grace. They were tangled in the sheets I had just changed the morning before. The Italian silk set Adam once complained was too expensive. My hairbrush had been knocked to the floor, and on the nightstand sat the pearl bracelet I gave Grace for her birthday last year. Adam didn't panic when he saw me. No guilty look, just mild annoyance, like I'd walked in while he was reading a book. "Lily?" He raised an eyebrow. "Why are you home so early?" I didn't say anything at first. I just looked. 3 people crammed onto the bed I once believed symbolized trust. Natalie pulled up the covers to shield her bare body, her face pale. Grace avoided my gaze, eyes darting awkwardly. Finally, Adam exhaled. "It's not what it looks like." That sentence, empty cliché, hit me like a slap. "So tell me," I said, my voice eerily calm, "what should I think when I walk in on my husband and my 2 best friends naked in my bed?" Natalie burst into tears. Perfect, smudge-free tears. Like she'd rehearsed. "Lily, we didn't mean, it was just a mistake." "I swear," I cut in, "if either of you says just a mistake one more time." I didn't have to finish. The air in the room thickened, as if they all realized I wasn't the woman who forgave easily anymore. I stood there staring at the 3 people who once meant the world to me, now so small, so lost and ashamed. Part of me hurt, but the other part, the part that rose stronger, was icy clear. I had given them everything, trust, love, time, even my deepest secrets. And they chose to betray me right in the place I called home. "I don't want to hear anything else," I said, stepping back when Natalie tried to reach for me. "Don't touch me, don't call, don't text, don't look for me." Adam scrambled out of bed, pulling on his pants. "Lily, wait. We need to talk." I turned away in silence. As my hand touched the doorknob, Adam called out, fear finally cracking through his voice. "Lily, don't do anything foolish. Remember, half of everything here is mine." I turned to him, locking eyes. "That's right," I said quietly. "Half of everything, including the consequences." Then I left the room, not with a dramatic slam, just a soft click, so soft they wouldn't realize I'd be back when they least expected it. I drove all the way to Topanga Beach, the spot Adam and I once called our favorite escape when we were newlyweds. The ocean was still blue, the waves still steady, but I was no longer the same. I sat on a wooden bench, watching kites drift in the distance, my mind oddly still. No tears, no screaming, just emptiness. And thoughts. I don't know how long I sat there. My phone buzzed non-stop. First Adam, then Natalie, then Grace. I turned it off. I didn't want rehearsed excuses or hollow apologies. They had a whole plan. Me, I was just starting to pick up the pieces. That night, I didn't go home. I drove straight to a small hotel in Silver Lake, the one I'd stayed at the night of my first interior design store launch. The room was small, simple, but clean and quiet, enough for me to breathe without being suffocated by memories. I lay on the bed staring at the ceiling and began to remember the signs I had missed, or more truthfully chosen to ignore. 3 months ago, Adam suddenly asked me to update our life insurance policy, naming him as the sole beneficiary, just to keep things simple, he said. I didn't question it. A year ago, Natalie borrowed $40,000 to expand her ceramic studio. I never asked for paperwork, because she was Natalie, my college best friend, the one who once split the last sandwich with me sophomore year. And Grace? 2 years ago, she started shadowing my clients. First as a design assistant, then calling herself a partner. Once a client texted me, thanking me for the stunning sketches Grace had just sent. I laughed it off, thinking it was a mistake. All those signs. As clear as California sun at noon, but I refused to see them. Because I loved them. Because I trusted them. I sat up, opened my laptop and started a list. I wrote down each name. Adam, Natalie, Grace. Then bullet-pointed what I knew. Shared accounts Adam had been withdrawing from without my knowledge. Clients Grace had approached. Strange delays Natalie had with her repayments even after her latest successful collection. I saved the file to an encrypted hard drive and moved on to people I could trust. Not many left. But a few. Jake, my father's old attorney. Marianne, the only friend outside the design world, now a tax investigator. And Sylvia, the hotel owner who once said, "When the heart breaks, the mind works sharper than ever." That night I allowed myself to cry, but not for Adam, not for the traitors. I cried for myself, the woman who had trusted too deeply in 3 people who didn't deserve it. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the sheer white curtain. I brewed coffee, slipped on the navy dress Adam once called too serious, and started making calls. First was Jake. "I need your help protecting my personal and business assets as soon as possible." Then Marianne. "I only needed 2 sentences. You said you wanted to investigate a boutique chain for possible tax fraud. I have a lead." She paused. "Send me the address. And Lily? Don't give them another chance to strike." I hung up and looked out the window at the lake behind the hotel. For the first time, I wasn't shaking. The storm had passed inside me. It was time to take control. I pulled out my backup phone, logged into a personal bank account Adam never knew existed. The money was untouched. Savings I'd stashed away after every major project, just as my mother once told me. A woman should always have a safe place, even when she's married. I smiled. They thought I was weak, that I'd crumble in silence, but they didn't realize. Yesterday's Lily was gone. I wouldn't react how they expected. I wouldn't scream and be labeled emotional or hysterical. I'd do things my way, quietly, patiently, and precisely. Because this time, I wasn't just fighting for justice for myself, I was making sure they never had the chance to hurt anyone else again. I still remember that fall afternoon last year when the doctor walked in with a heavy folder and a somber look. "Lily," he said gently, "there's no longer a heartbeat." The 3rd time I had lost my 3rd baby. Adam held me, said it would be okay, that we'd try again, that he'd be there no matter what. But what I'll never forget was the look in his eyes. Not heartbreak, but weariness, cold, distant in a way I couldn't explain. I chose to believe his words over my gut. I told myself he was just tired. I blamed myself for not being able to carry our child. Then, when the doctor suggested full testing, Adam refused to come. Said he had to fly out on a sudden business trip. Business trip? Now I wonder if that was when it all began with Natalie. For the past 3 years I buried myself in IVF rounds, hormone testing, strict diets, yoga, even meditation. I did everything to become a mother. Adam? He cheered me on, paid the bills, showed up for the first few appointments, then slowly disappeared. Said he was busy, with work, with projects, with everything. But I didn't stop. I loved our children, even before they had a heartbeat. I loved hope, no matter how faint. And Natalie and Grace, they were always there, smiling, hugging. Natalie even helped me write the names of our lost babies in a little notebook. Grace brought warm teas and mystery herbs she said were good for the womb. Looking back, I see it now. Natalie's eyes when she mentioned Adam weren't sympathetic, they were possessive. Grace asked too many questions about my schedule, my nights away at clinics, how long I'd be gone. They didn't just betray me, they used my pain to cover their plans. I opened my laptop and pulled up my entire treatment calendar. Then I cross-referenced it with Adam's business trips. Strangely, they almost matched. The weekend I was in Palm Springs for recovery, Adam said he was in Denver. Natalie posted a blurry photo. Weekend getaway, with a coffee cup and the necklace I once gave her. The hotel wall in the background, the same as Adam's conference room photo. Grace, She always followed up after, telling me about parties, new clients Adam introduced, stories where Adam was always the center. I don't know when it started, but what hurt most wasn't that they slept together, it was that I placed my trust, my love, my hopes for a family into people who orchestrated such a lie. I grabbed a leather notebook, opened the first page and wrote, "List of betrayals." Underneath, I detailed every lie I'd ignored, from Natalie asking me to co-sign her studio loan, to Grace taking my designs to a trade show under her name. I once thought they were careless, that I was being too sensitive, but now I saw the pattern. Flawless. As I reviewed my bank accounts, I discovered Adam had quietly withdrawn $20,000 from our savings to invest in a joint project with a friend. That friend? Natalie. I sat in silence as the sunset painted golden lines across the hotel curtain. The rage, the grief, the disappointment, they pressed in like a volcano ready to erupt. But I didn't let it. I held it. I turned it into something else. Resolve. I wouldn't retaliate out of emotion. I wouldn't do anything they could use against me. I would do everything the right way, but without mercy. Because they hadn't just betrayed me. They had trampled over every drop of blood I'd lost, every lonely hospital night, every oversized pajama I wore, for a belly that never grew. I left the Silver Lake Hotel after 4 days. Not because I wanted to stay longer, but because I needed a place truly separate from everything. From memories, from familiar places, from the accidental glances of people I once knew. I drove north, through winding mountain roads to Napa Valley, where a small cabin on a hillside waited. The secret getaway my mother once loved before she passed. That cabin was mine now. A quiet inheritance, hidden from everyone. Here, I could breathe without the weight of the past. And more importantly, I could start planning. That first night by the fireplace, I opened my laptop and typed the first message to Jake, my dad's old lawyer, long retired but still connected. I need a private investigator, someone discreet who understands the law and doesn't ask too many questions. Less than an hour later, Jake texted me a name, Faye Caldwell. A former financial crimes investigator now running her own private office in Sacramento. Jake said just one thing. If you suspect they're hiding something, Faye will find it. And she's not afraid to dig deep. The next morning I drove to Faye's office. It was a small building tucked behind an old bookstore. No sign, no receptionist. When I walked in, Faye was making coffee, her salt and pepper hair pulled back neatly. Her face stern, like she'd just come out of a congressional hearing. "Lily James?" she asked without looking at a calendar. I nodded. "Have a seat. Start from the beginning. Don't leave anything out." I told her everything, from the miscarriages to Adam's business trips to Natalie's shady meddling with my finances and Grace's exploitation of my designs. Faye didn't take notes. She just listened, nodding slightly whenever I emphasized a timeline or a suspicious detail. At the end, she pulled out a file and slid it across the table. "This is the service agreement. I'll investigate 3 individuals. Adam, your husband Natalie, the financial associate who borrowed money, and Grace, who appears to have infringed on your intellectual property. I'll examine bank accounts, business ties, asset transfers, unusual calls, and if necessary, conduct direct surveillance. Do you agree?" I signed without hesitation. For the next 2 weeks I lived like a ghost. During the day I tended to my mother's garden, still filled with the lavender she once planted. At night I worked at my laptop, listing all the clients Grace had approached, cross-checking invoices Natalie had given me, and reviewing the bank statements Adam had been temporarily managing. That's when I noticed regular transfers into an account under the name Northlake Creative LLC. A name I had never heard before, but in one of Adam's old emails I saw a familiar line. "I'm in talks with Northlake about a brand partnership." Northlake, a shell company. Faye called me one night, close to 11 p.m. "We've got something. That company doesn't exist in the business registry, but I traced the account holder, none other than Natalie Evans, and the most recent deposit came from an account tied to the boutique Grace just opened in Pasadena." I clenched my phone. "Is there proof Natalie withdrew money from our joint account?" "Yes, $18,000 over the past 2 months, labeled as Showroom Interior Investment. Electronically signed by Adam." I said nothing. Faye continued. "There's more. Adam just applied for a short-term mortgage loan. Collateral, your house. He claimed you agreed." I nearly dropped the phone, but Faye's voice grounded me. "He's gathering money. Maybe to exit a job or to launder before disappearing. Whatever it is, we need to move fast." I thanked her and hung up. The night outside the window was pitch black, but inside me what was taking shape wasn't darkness. It was a plan, growing clearer by the minute. They didn't just lie to me, they gambled with a future I built with blood and tears, and I wouldn't let them win, not this time. I opened my notebook and wrote 3 words on the first blank page. Phase 1, begin. That afternoon I received a thick envelope via express delivery from Faye. Inside was a USB drive, a stack of printed financial records, bank statements, screenshots of text messages, and carefully numbered notes. She'd worked tirelessly for 3 weeks, and now the truth was no longer just a feeling. It was documented, line by line. I plugged the USB into my laptop, sat at the sunlit kitchen table, took a deep breath and began reading. The first page was a flowchart. At the center, Northlake Creative LLC, the shell a company Adam had used. From there, the money flowed into another account under the name Evelyn Harris. A fake identity, but Faye had traced the registration address to Grace's boutique. My throat tightened as I flipped the page, a screenshot of Natalie's bank account showing a stream of transfers labeled Strategy Consulting, Interior Services Fee, Equipment Lease Payments, all amounts that matched the funds missing from my and Adam's joint account. Then came Grace, the sweet, soft-spoken friend who had registered a new interior design brand using my original layouts, the ones I'd emailed her for feedback on a hypothetical project. She hadn't just stolen my designs, she'd presented them at trade shows under the title of Creative Director. I scrolled to the next page, and my heart dropped. A screenshot from my health provider portal, most recent login, username AdamJames78. Dated May 14. 2 days after I had a blood test to check for natural pregnancy viability after hormone treatment. Adam knew I was pregnant, and I hadn't even told him yet. Toward the end of the file was a text message between Natalie and an unnamed number. Faye had traced it, it was Adam. Is she suspicious yet? No, still trusts both of us, we just need to keep things quiet a few more weeks. A few more weeks? For what? I flipped to the appendix Faye had compiled, and on the first page was a medical report. Not mine, but Natalie's. Her most recent prescription, prenatal vitamins, dated the same week as my blood test. I sat frozen. Natalie was pregnant. And if the timelines lined up, then what I feared most? I stood up, trying to reach the balcony for air, but my legs felt like they were bolted to the floor. They hadn't just betrayed me physically. They'd planned this, used my money, my work, my trust, to build a parallel life where I was just a shadow outside the frame. I remembered how Natalie absent-mindedly rubbed her stomach while chatting with me weeks ago. I thought she just had too much chocolate. And Grace? She once asked if I'd considered drafting a will, just in case. You know, independent women should plan ahead. A chill ran down my spine. I returned to the table, my hand trembling as I clicked the audio file Faye had sent. It was a recording from a hidden mic she'd planted during a coffee meetup between Natalie and Grace near the boutique. Natalie, she still thinks we're best friends, it's kind of sad. Grace, perfect. Once it's done, Adam transfers the house to you, and I'll finalize the brand. Everything's on track. Natalie, and the baby will be the perfect reason to speed up the divorce. She won't be able to fight that. I didn't finish listening. I didn't need to. That was all I needed to know. The wooden chair beneath me creaked as I leaned back, my arms wrapped around my belly. I was just a few weeks along. A tiny life forming inside me, unaware of the deceit and cruelty swirling outside. I bowed my head, placed a hand on my stomach. You won't grow up in the dark, I whispered. I promise. And that promise wasn't just a soft vow, it was the beginning of a new chapter, where the truth wouldn't just be revealed, but documented, down to the last detail. I returned to Los Angeles on a clear early summer morning, sunlight hitting the glass towers of Century City. I didn't go home. The house was under temporary control by Adam after he filed for asset management during separation. But I wasn't back to reclaim walls. I was back to reclaim my name, my career, and the truth. My first meeting was with the board of Orem Holdings, a luxury real estate investment firm where Adam had once been a senior financial advisor. That morning he was scheduled to present a $20 million resort project in Palm Desert, a project I knew, from Faye's investigation, was tied to Natalie's shell company and Grace's boutique money laundering scheme. I didn't wait until the last second to expose them. I had already emailed Orem's CEO with a simple request. Give me the first 5 minutes of the meeting to share design insights and a few risks you might have overlooked. I entered the conference room at 8:58 a.m., 2 minutes before the meeting began. Adam stood by the projector flipping through slides, confident and polished as ever. He froze when he saw me, but I didn't give him a chance to speak. "My name is Lily James," I said clearly. "I was previously invited to consult on the interior architecture for the Palm Desert Eco Lodge project, and I have information you should review before making any further investments." I plugged in the USB. Phase documents, the shady wire transfers, the fake company registration, the boutique's bank statements, flashed onto the screen one by one. No accusations, just facts, undeniable and direct. "I'm not here to stop the project," I concluded. "I simply think you should carefully reconsider placing your resources and reputation in the hands of someone currently under investigation for financial fraud." The room fell silent. Adam tried to stay composed, but the vein in his temple throbbed. A board member finally spoke. "We're going to pause the meeting, and Mr. James, you'll need to step out." I didn't linger. I didn't need to see his reaction. I had another appointment. With Grace. I arrived at her boutique at noon. The store was still buzzing with customers, the storefront cheerful as if nothing had happened. Grace saw me from behind the counter, and her smile disappeared instantly. "Lily?" she stammered. "What are you doing here?" "I came to collect a debt." I pulled from my bag a copy of the personal loan agreement between us. One I had quietly saved, even though it once seemed like a meaningless piece of paper. $40,000 plus accrued interest over 15 months comes to $46,200. I want the transfer by 5 p.m. today. Grace broke into a sweat. "Lily, I wasn't ready for—" "No problem," I smiled. "If you don't pay, I'm sure the Women of Westlake Charity, where you're a co-director, will be very interested in the money laundering report I just filed with the IRS this morning." Her jaw dropped. "I thought we were friends." "We were," I replied. "But friends don't steal designs and use fake names to funnel money through anonymous accounts." I walked out without looking back. Some customers turned their heads. A few whispered. I didn't care. I had planted the seeds. Now it was time for the truth to spread. Finally, Natalie. I didn't meet her in public. I sent a meeting request to her work email, pretending to be an investor looking to partner on a new showroom. She responded quickly, setting up a time at her co-working office in Westwood. I arrived on time. Natalie wore a white dress, holding a leather notebook. The picture-perfect image of a successful businesswoman. Until I placed on the table the Northlake account records, along with the medical documents proving she was pregnant, at the exact same time Adam learned I was pregnant. "Are you threatening me?" Natalie hissed. "No," I said, my eyes locked on hers. "I'm giving you a chance to resign from the Southside Urban Development Board before I take everything I know to the media and the police." Natalie went pale. Her hands clenched, then she pulled out her phone and began typing. I stood up. "And don't bother calling Adam. He's busy right now explaining to lawyers why his name was removed from the shareholder list of the company he thought he controlled." I walked out of that office, one hand resting gently on my stomach. 8 months later I walked through the iron gate of the old house in Venice Beach, now officially mine. The court had issued its final ruling after more than 6 months of legal battle. I retained all premarital assets, my interior design firm, the house, and my full personal investment portfolio. Adam lost access to all accounts under my name and was now under investigation by the IRS and SEC for tax evasion, financial fraud, and falsifying business records. His lawyer tried to drag out the case, presenting countless arguments that he co-founded the business concept with me, and that the assets were marital property due to emotional contribution. But my evidence? Every contract, email, transaction, and testimony from my partners shut it all down. The verdict was delivered in a courtroom so silent it was almost eerie. Adam didn't look at me. When the judge declared me the sole legal owner of all assets and closed the session, he simply lowered his head and quietly gathered his papers. I didn't feel triumphant, I just felt relieved. A few days later, Adam was prohibited from leaving the state when the account for Northlake Creative was officially frozen. Former investors pulled out one after another and his reputation collapsed almost overnight. A financial newspaper ran a headline, "The man once behind multi-million-dollar projects now under suspicion for corruption and personal fraud." And Natalie? After being forced to step down from the Urban Development Board, she vanished from social media. Her boutique shut down, and rumors about her baby's unclear paternity began circulating in small business circles. She moved to another state, according to Faye, and started over, using her middle name. Either way, the career she tried to build with my money and her lies had crumbled. Grace's fall was even worse. After the Design Association revoked her license for unauthorized use of my work, her clients began filing complaints en masse for poor quality deliveries and shady financial practices. Her store closed in less than 3 months and she was sued for unpaid rent. One of Grace's former employees sent me a short thank you email. "Thank you for standing up. We didn't dare speak before out of fear of losing our jobs. But now everyone knows who she really is." As for me, I returned to design work with a lean but efficient team. A major client, Elliott & Pines Hotels, hired me as the lead designer for their upscale airport lounge renovation project across the western U.S. The biggest project I've ever taken on. They chose me not just for my aesthetic, but because of how I protected my brand through the storm. And last month, on a softly raining morning at Cedars-Sinai, I welcomed my daughter, Ava Rose James. She weighed just under 7.5 pounds with blue-gray eyes and a gaze that seemed to see through everything. When the nurse placed her on my chest, I cried, not from pain, but because I knew that after all the loss, I still held on to what mattered most: hope. Ava doesn't carry her father's name. Her birth certificate lists only one parent, me. I've chosen to live simply. I didn't move back into the villa right away. I bought a small home in West LA. Just 2 bedrooms, a workspace and a garden filled with lavender like my mother used to love. Each morning I wrap Ava against my chest, brew a cup of tea, play soft jazz, and just sit. No meetings, no emails, no endless phone calls, just me, my daughter, and the birds. People often ask me, "Lily, if you could go back to that moment, would you do anything differently?" My answer is always the same: no. Because without that betrayal, I would have never seen people for who they truly were. I wouldn't have learned to stand on my own, and most of all, I would have never had Ava, the first light of my new life. Life took me places I never imagined, but I remained standing. I didn't just survive, I was reborn. And this time, as a free woman, as a mother, as someone who no longer fears loss, because everything I need, I hold in my arms. That afternoon, as Ava slept soundly in the white bassinet by the window, I sat at my desk and opened the manuscript of the book I'd started. A book about interior design, but not just about paint colors or fabric textures. It's about healing spaces, about how a room can help you rise again after you've been broken. I once thought I'd write it during my first pregnancy, when I naively believed everything would go according to plan. But now, the manuscript had new life. It wasn't just decorative advice. It was a real story about heartbreak, recovery, and rebirth. I looked at Ava through the glass, saw her shift slightly, tiny fists clenched, lips parted as if dreaming of something peaceful. I placed my hand on my stomach, the place she grew, the place I once thought would never hold life again. And I knew. Everything I'd been through, no matter how bitter, led me to this moment. Once, Sylvia, the hotel owner in Silver Lake, texted me and asked, "If there's one lesson your daughter should learn from your life, what is it?" I didn't answer right away, but now I know. You need to understand that no one can truly break you, unless you give them the power to. I once gave that power to Adam, to Natalie, to Grace. I let their betrayal define me, turned myself into a woman who was quiet, hurt, and constantly questioning her worth. But then I learned to protect the part of me no one could steal, my belief in myself, my ability to love myself, and my commitment to live in truth. I don't need to retaliate by wounding them the same way. I just need to let them crumble under the weight of their own choices. When you start seeing people for who they truly are, everything becomes simple, painful, but clear. Natalie showed me she could smile while stabbing me in the back. Grace showed me she couldn't stand someone else's light, so she chose to steal rather than shine on her own. And Adam? The man I once believed would father the children I dreamed of, turned out to be someone who used love as a tool, not a promise. I'm no longer the woman who stepped into that bedroom with a shattered heart. I'm the one who rose from the wreckage, rebuilt herself, and created a world where I and my daughter deserve to live. A world without lies, conditional love, or friendships based on what you can give. I choose a new life, imperfect but real. I choose new friends, kind ones, who want nothing from me but my presence. I choose to work with clients who respect effort and integrity. I choose to create a space where Ava can grow up knowing her mother never gave up. One afternoon, as Ava and I strolled through the weekend market, I ran into Jenna, Grace's former assistant now selling handmade crafts at a little booth. She looked surprised, probably not expecting a smile from me. I nodded, just a quiet hello, then kept walking. I don't need their apologies. I don't need their forgiveness, because what I need, I already have. Peace. That night, as Ava drifted off to sleep to the sound of a soft lullaby, I wrote the final line of my book. The greatest gift someone can give you is showing you who they truly are, and the greatest power you have is believing them the first time. I no longer resent what happened, because without it, I would have never learned the most important lesson of all. Never lose yourself trying to hold on to someone else. I closed the laptop, set down my pen. Outside, the wind whispered through the lavender vines I planted just last week. A new beginning without fireworks or applause. Just a strong heart, and a child sleeping peacefully in your arms. Lily's story is a powerful reminder that true strength isn't found in revenge, but in the ability to rise after pain and rewrite your own destiny. In a world full of deception and betrayal, she chose truth, justice, and unwavering self-worth. Her journey wasn't just a rebirth, it was a message to us all. Don't let anyone define you by how they hurt you. Let the way you heal become your true definition. What do you think about Lily's journey and the choices she made? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more deep, inspiring, real-life stories about family and life.